Hello, 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 and welcome. It's another episode of Career Coaching After Hours. I'm your host, John Davidsson, and can you believe it already? Episode 32, July 2026. So, hope you're all doing really well. Hope your summer is going great. This is a very special episode because I've been chomping at the bit to get to some of these issues, and here in the Seattle area, we've been having a red-hot Jimothy summer, the adorable raccoon with the short spine syndrome, and he may be making an appearance in this presentation a whole lot. So this presentation is actually a massive springboard off of an article I wrote recently about AI resumes and how awful resumes are and how difficult it is for job seekers to sometimes even get an interview, but just even to stand out in this sea of sameness where we see so many resumes that look and sound and talk and seem virtually identical. And we have all these wonderful tools, and yet when we're talking about something as personal as a resume, should we even be using AI? And if so, how? And how come everybody's resume looks the same these days? So maybe we should all take some cues from Jimothy and be different and be unique. Just a thought, or just a couple of thoughts. As usual, this series is audience agnostic, so if you're a regular watcher, listener, viewer, thank you very much. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And if you're a client, wonderful, thank you. If you're not, feel free to schedule a consultation. And hopefully you like the new music in the background. And so as I'm likely not your career coach or career counselor, just consider my credentials and our relationship. This is some general overview type advice, but there are some citations there you can take a look at in the posting credits if you want to dig a little bit deeper, and we'll be talking about some good articles as well, so it's not just me spouting off about what I think, but do check your senses and check your sources. So I do have a great deal of experience regarding resumes and career development, but these are my opinions. So let's dig in a little bit, and it sure seems AI resumes have run amok. And when I talk to not just my clients, but other career development professionals or hiring managers, wow, it seems like it's tougher than ever to figure out who's not fibbing on a resume or who didn't just click generate in Copilot or Claude or Gemini to get a resume built out. So let's dive into some of these issues, shall we? And I think if you haven't heard of that phrase, I mean, it's a common theme in marketing, the sea of sameness. And so you could say we just live in a world where there's so many similarities between first and second best. It's hard to wrap our head around it. So, I mean, all the new cars look like electric shavers. There are only a couple of different sodas to choose from. You've got your Coke, you've got your Pepsi. What's the difference between McDonald's and Burger King and all the other burgers? Is this sea of sameness. But maybe what's kind of troubling about the sea of sameness when it comes to resumes or humans and their documents is we're talking about real lives on the line and people's livelihoods kind of thing. So a client actually sent this to me not too long ago. It's an interview with CNN and with Indeed's global VP of marketing, and she was making some really good points about how everyone's the same, and Indeed, which is now gobbled up Glassdoor as well, is really struggling with this, and AI is making all the applicants look basically the same when it comes to their resumes and cover letters. So it's this kind of battle of AI where so many people are applying to jobs and companies use applicant tracking systems, ATS, to score and scan the resume. We've got a real problem here. So everyone's resume looks the same and reads the same, and you could say cover letters are worse than ever as well, and all kind of have that same general sound and look, unfortunately, regardless of what AI model. And I'm seeing a lot of that too. A lot of folks are hiring me these days because they're not getting results, getting interviews, or even performing well in their interviews because of the AI issues. So yeah, how does one stand out in a sea of sameness? What can job seekers do? Some really good questions here. And I don't necessarily mean just stop using AI, but get out of here, Jimothy. So you're going to see a lot of Jimothy throughout the presentation. Couldn't help it. You can file a complaint. But in response, what I see is job seekers deploying AI to kind of fight AI or fight applicant tracking systems. And we still have a lawsuit going on against Workday. A lot of people feel like when they send their resume, it goes into a black hole kind of thing. So they're well capable of doing the job, but they're not sure how to tune up their resume or maybe which resume version to send in. So you see this on LinkedIn quite a bit. I see posts on a pretty regular basis where folks are just kind of lamenting how biased systems are and how tough it is to be a job seeker in 2026. And so we see this kind of arms race, kind of job seekers dialing up the AI artillery, as I pointed out. And you could make a good argument that even paid tier AI models, so if you're paying for Claude or Copilot or ChatGPT or Gemini or your favorite model, are you really getting anything more than shovelware? Maybe not. So it's a really good argument to be made that the free models maybe are better in a way to compare or compare quickly, compare more cost effectively across models. And that's actually a model from Claude, and we'll talk about why I'm demonstrating the one with Claude and not the model that I built out of Copilot or Gemini. But I think it's really easy to forget that if you're using AI for anything, the way I phrased it is that it seeks out gold and garbage in equal measure. So if I'm asking AI to build artwork or compose music or draft a document or come up with some ideas for me to talk to my doctor about, I really do have to take the good with the bad. And I'm really hoping that it pulls out some good sources. And like anything else, you would hope you'd dig a little bit deeper in terms of how it generated that. Just like if somebody gives you advice, you might want to know where they got their training or where they're getting that info or that data. AI scrapes the bottom of the barrel too. So, for example, what you see on the screen there in the presentation, I took my LinkedIn profile and I asked the main models that I end up using, more often than not, Copilot, Claude, and Gemini, to generate a resume. And I thought overall, out of the models tested, Claude probably did overall a better job. So without digging into too much of it, I have a lot of problems with what it generated and what it left off the table as well. So part of what I'm seeing is that resumes in general, not just necessarily fully blown AI resumes, but when people mostly use AI to build their resume as opposed to building it from scratch, it's like resumes have lost their signal value. They've lost their humanity. And that this template, I've seen this many, many times. You might be thinking that looks like my resume, or that looks like some of the same templates you could download from Microsoft Word back when Windows 95 was released. It's kind of that era of template. And that's a lot of what you see in resume template libraries, is a lot of templates that really do look behind the times. So there we be. But yeah, when you think about a resume and how powerful it needs to be in terms of a branding document, a marketing document, a document that may have to sustain you in a job interview, it should probably have that triad of ethos, logos, pathos, just like a good legal brief or just like a good persuasive essay. And so far, AI doesn't seem to be very capable of clicking all three of those buttons and having all three legs of the stool, as it were. Usually it's pretty darn weak across the board. So there we be. But that's another big issue is I see folks really struggling in their interviews because the resume that's been generated functionally didn't ask for their opinions or didn't interview them or didn't do a mock interview. Like when I work with somebody one-on-one, we're essentially doing mock interviews every time we re-engineer, re-architect that resume. And so employers are struggling with this. You practically were in the age of Voight-Kampff tests from Blade Runner, where we might have to figure out if a candidate is even human and how much AI did they use in the process there. So it seems like AI resumes are polluting the entire hiring ecosystem. Eek. And I think there's baby Jimothy, by the way. I think job seekers might be well served. There's actually a pretty good article, I think, from Harvard Business Review that came out recently from a Microsoft and a Meta executive kind of pointing out some of the issues related not just to AI resumes, but some of the real performance issues that humans have in interviews and not being able to talk about their real successes. And this is such a massively common issue. When I work with my clients or when I've been a hiring manager, I'm astonished often when I ask folks to tell me about themselves or talk about their career, and how often what they say, what they verbalize, is quite different than what's on the resume itself, their documentation or LinkedIn or their portfolio. And that dissonance can be lethal in an interview kind of thing. And so there's really kind of an interesting quote here. It's the conversational interview. You could say that used to be the ultimate test of a candidate's authenticity, is being actively compromised in real time. And I don't think it's any wonder why more employers are doing more interviews in so many cases. Instead of 3 or 4, maybe 4, 5, 6 interviews with a candidate. So the resume, is it losing its value? And I think this article makes some really interesting points. And even though I tend to agree with a lot of it, take it with a grain of salt. But this idea that a written persona and a live presence being different, that dissonance, I mean, this is nothing new. For years and years and years, maybe since time immemorial, people have been hiring somebody to write their resume for them, or even going into advanced writing tools like Grammarly and trying to get a lot of support to write something that's fundamentally very different from how they think or speak or act. And maybe therein lies the problem, is too much outsourcing. When you have someone else writing your resume or constructing and engineering something that's so personal, that might not be a great idea. It's kind of like having somebody write your autobiography. It might not be a good move. But yeah, and it's not just necessarily even the human to AI translation issue. I mean, even if you're really good at writing AI prompts, you're still outsourcing something that probably should be fundamentally more meditative resume. So like I've been saying to folks for years, especially since the consumer grade AI that we have, I mean, imagine you're in a job interview and somebody says, tell me about yourself, or tell us about yourself as a panel. I mean, if AI wrote your script, that's going to be a painful question in a job interview. So something to keep in mind. So, of course, Jimothy has exploded here in the Seattle area. He's our viral meme. He's adorable little raccoon guy. But I think what's interesting about him, and the reason I draw the distinction, and it may seem like it's a stretch, but he isn't just different. He's not just some kind of a different looking raccoon. I mean, he is unique. And I've said that to many times over the years. Difference is good, but unique is mathematically totally different. So we've got this adorable little guy, and he's adapted authentically to a world hostile to outdoor ermine animals. And no one's calling him too polished, like a lot of the AI resumes you see. They almost look too perfect, or they sound too perfect, or consistently perfect. And it's hard not to admire successful imperfection. I mean, he's adapted to this hostile, harsh world around him, or at least a suburban landscape, and he's done so on his own terms. I think that's one of the things that really interests people about that critter, right? You don't see that every day, and yet he seems to be thriving. He seems to be doing just fine. And you could say that level of deep authenticity is so key. So the Harvard Business Review article goes on a little bit here, is that, this idea of intellectual honesty over polished perfection. I really like how they phrased that. And that's often what I see with AI generated resumes, regardless of the model being used, or whether it's paid or not, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, Gemini, the main ones that I see. It's this idea that it sounds polished. It sounds like something an MBA grad student would say, somebody with a fresh MBA, I should say, would write. So it may sound polished, but kind of lean on details, maybe not scruffy enough, maybe not enough dollars or details. And that could really hurt. So not just in how different the candidate sounds, but do you have some of those point of fact examples at the ready kind of thing? And maybe one of the big scary kind of bugaboo elements of the whole AI thing is if an employer thinks you're just going to use AI or rely on it heavily, then why am I hiring you? If you're simply just going to outsource projects to Claude or Copilot, then why are we paying you for 5 days of work every week? Maybe this should be a part-time job. Heck, maybe we should just use an AI agent to do the job. Uh-oh. So, but I think the article makes some really good points about culture fit and how critical interviews still are, and as interviews are starting to adapt, that over-reliance on AI might really start to burn job seekers. And I'm seeing this in the trenches, and I feel for folks. So you can tell I'm kind of arguing for a more authentic, more meditative model, to say the least. But if you look at some of the stats, and I think that's a really interesting number there, because I've seen numbers where hiring managers into the 60 to 80% bracket believe people lie on their resume or fib on their resume or embellish on their resume. And what's really scary about this idea, nearly 40% of job seekers lying on their resumes, is maybe the complicity issue. So even when I ran my resume through those AI models, it's kind of interesting. I wouldn't say that it fibbed or embellished, but there are a couple of points that I think probably should have been reeled in, kind of thing. And so how do you know if AI isn't lying on your resume on your behalf in order to help you, kind of thing? You could say it's sort of like doing AI research and you want a certain conclusion and you've got a thesis and you're trying to prove it, and AI is helping you get data that proves that. That kind of flies in the face of the scientific method. It's just making up organs in the human body or making up legal cases. This is why a lot of medical researchers and attorneys have gotten a little bit of hot water using AI, when it just kind of makes things up. And it may feel good initially, but it might burn us at the end of the rainbow. But like I say, so many folks have hired me, especially the last couple of years, after really kind of dismal in the trenches results. Even if you're using AI to compare your resume or a base resume to a given job description. So often I see that burn job seekers, where AI will just simply omit critical, maybe hypercritical keywords in the new revision that a human would have caught had they taken a deep breath or maybe diagrammed the job description. So on a certain level, I don't feel super bad when people do that, but of course it's rough to see job seekers really struggle. But I would say definitely take it with a grain of salt. If your resume looks and sounds too polished or does not sound like you, how is that different than, say, a politician hiring a script writer or a speech writer who fundamentally doesn't sound like that political candidate? How false is that? Even if it sounds great, is that authenticity relevant? Is that valuable? It's a good question. But there's also another article I think is really helpful too for any of us who use AI. And you could say that AI is taken over in virtually every respect. Whether you have a blue collar, a green collar, white collar job, you have access to AI tools now for free or a paid version of it, and you have that decision point kind of thing. But there's a article in Fortune about mathematicians trying to solve these really complex equations and challenges and problems, but AI doesn't give a bleep. So unlike a human colleague, AI doesn't risk its reputation by being wrong. So does AI really even care if you don't get that interview? Unlike, let's say, a professional resume writer, a professional career coach, or even a good friend. No, it does not. Claude doesn't care if it gets it wrong. Claude doesn't care if I actually use that resume and it blows up in my face. Yeesh. There's a reputational cost. But I outlined, and there are some more Jimothy pictures there too, because he looks great as a bullet as well. So if you're building a resume, definitely use Jimothy as a bullet for your resume. That's definitely a good idea, or may or may not be a good idea. But this idea of resume as a performance document, as a critical tool in the toolbox. And I harp on this point all the time, is a resume shouldn't help you just get the interview. It should help you ace the interview. So if you get a question in a job interview like, tell me about yourself, maybe your resume should have a statement like a summary that helps fuel that answer and is now consistent and in alignment with that. Just a thought. Great questions pop up in interviews all the time, and folks are not prepared for them. And they don't remember to look down at their resume or remember that they have a document that may be critical in establishing their credibility. So for example, when I'm interviewing somebody and I ask what are their greatest achievements or tell me about yourself, if it sounds and smells different than the resume, that's probably at least an orange flag. Could be nervousness, it could be other factors, but that's certainly a consideration. Or why is it that so many AI-generated resumes really stumble or fail pretty badly to communicate how people adapt in their career, how they gain capabilities and functions? And so many AI resumes I see, there's just no growth mindset concept in them. So if you're in a job interview and you get asked how you're sharpening your skills, well, AI doesn't particularly care. You could say by using AI, maybe we are dulling our skills. And so often people tell me they spend a lot of time in AI regenerating their resume, but is that really making you any better at using the model if you're still getting AI slop, if you're still getting AI resumes that just don't quite cut it? But yeah, some of the most common questions often become really difficult to answer when you've got an AI resume as your co-pilot. How do you solve problems? What have you learned from your toughest challenge? How do you use AI in a job interview? I think that's a great question and may become even a more mandatory question, as in, did you use AI to build this resume? Did you use AI to build this cover letter? If so, why? If so, how much? How much of you are you presenting? Or did you just send a robot to the interview in your place? I mean, why not? You can buy robots now. But again, so often resumes have that lack of humanity. What are your goals? What are you passionate about? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What keeps you up at night? What are your personal interests? Again, you could really make a good argument that an interview is far more, do you have the IQ to do the job? But maybe we look beyond just the objective. We look at the subjective. We're sizing up this human that might potentially join our family or our group, our team. So let's sum it up, since I can't go over 30 minutes. But something to keep in mind maybe is remember the value of your resume. Consider the interplay between your resume and your career search. It's a crucial document, arguably the most valuable document any of us humans own. It's our ability to earn an income. It is us writ large. It's our reputation. Kind of a big deal. So consider the value versus the risks of using AI and automation. Maybe that's a spectrum. I'm not necessarily suggesting yay or nay. For crying out loud, I use AI to generate artwork and even in some case music and other things, but I tell people how I use it, and I'm really clear about that. I have an AI, an ethical AI policy. So, and often there's not really a great way to communicate that in job interviews at this point. So you see this evolution of interviews that we're going through. But your story is valuable. You're an individual. And if you're one of my clients, I'm harping all the time on the value of your goals, the value of your past, your future, the present. So careful how you tell this valuable, interesting story. So I hope that made you think a little bit, gave you some resources to look at. And if you like Jimothy as much as I do, gosh, he's adorable. Oh my gosh. As a full-grown raccoon and regular of age raccoon and as a little baby. That's adorable. So thank you for joining me. Let me know if you think I'm on target or off base. Feel free to comment, of course, or send me a message through my website or social media. And thank you. Thank you, clients. Thank you, supporters. Thank you, my students, viewers, everybody. And there's some credits and citations in the details. So hope your red hot Jimothy summer is amazing. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.